I'm very excited and honored to have this opportunity to interview Stanley and John. Actually, the truth to tell, excuse me. The truth to tell, this is very much my first time meeting John and Stanley in person. So as curious as you guys, I can't wait to explore the story behind these two gentlemen. So let's work together and explore the story, all right? Awesome, so let's get straight into it. Now, John and Stanley, could you please give us a bit of introduction about your business, MyCube and Riverlife, like when it was founded, what it does, etc., etc.
I'll go first. So good evening, everybody, and thank you, Roman, and thank you, Lindsay. She's not here, for inviting me here, and great to meet all of you. So I'm the founder of MyCube, and MyCube has been around for about 7.5 years now. And so what we do is we help little entrepreneurs to start businesses at major shopping centers from $5 a day. And we've got 3 locations here in Brisbane. We're building a Sydney store as we speak. And we're going through capital raising at the moment to hopefully to build 35 stores around the country. And we've won quite a few awards. We have won the Best Startup Award a couple of years back. About 2 years ago, we won the Australian Small Business Champion in the category of small retail. And we also won the Community Hero Award for us helping the entrepreneurs to start. So, well, that's MyCube. I can keep on going, but I don't think you have all the time.
What about you, John?
Yes, can everyone hear me up the back? Is that okay? I suppose I started in the very early 2000, around about that time. I was a boilermaker, and I had a welding business, and I used to build bridges and wharves, and an opportunity came up called the Story Bridge Adventure Climb. And it was about that time that I decided I think there could be some adventure opportunities here in Brisbane. So I built the Story Bridge Adventure Climb, and with the money I made from that project, I purchased a very small percentage of that company, and I got a taste of tourism. And so whilst I was doing that, I launched the Riverlife Adventure Centre. And for those who don't know, the Riverlife Adventure Centre does things like kayaking on the Brisbane River, stand-up paddleboarding, rock climbing, abseiling, mountain bikes, segways, a lot of different adventure activities. But we also do weddings. We do about 200 weddings a year, lots of corporate activities. And we also have a restaurant where we run our catering service from. It's called the North Shore Harbour Restaurant, and it's down near the Eat Street Markets. We've been running that for a few years now. We have another business called Walkabout Creek Adventures, which is more near the National Park, and it does outdoor activities. We have 6 businesses over at Tangalooma, things like the diving, parasailing, massage and beauty. We deliver about 70 different types of adventure activities over there. And a few years ago we were in contact with P&O Cruises, so we build adventure activities on cruise ships, and we bring people in to run those cruises. And we've also got a couple of new startup companies that I'll talk about a little bit later.
Thank you very much. So both of your business models are quite interesting. My next question is, what has made you interested in selling your product to the Chinese market in Australia?
Well, before MyCube, I have a physiotherapy clinic in Sunnybank Hills, and that's my background. I'm in physiotherapy, and I had it for about 5 years before I start MyCube. And in that Sunnybank area, there's a very high population of Chinese community, So you know, the best way to start a business is leveraging on what you have existing in terms of relationships. And I had a lot of relationships within the Chinese community, and I know quite a few social media personalities that help us out to get our name out there. So it was a natural fit to start with the Chinese market. Now we're into Korean markets. 한요 한세요. I've learned that. So yeah, we go through different sort of communities that want to get into retail and want our help from $5 a day to start the businesses in major shopping centers.
Cool. So Stanley has the connection and the background with the Chinese people. That makes sense. What about you, John?
Well, I have two very separate stories when it comes to engaging with Chinese people. But I would first like to say in business, like anything else in life, you like to do business and be with people you like. And I like Chinese people.
Why?
Well, after the first negotiation, when you do business, Chinese people are good customers. Really, really good customers. Because they like to do adventurous things, and when they step outside of their comfort zone, they're really proud of what they do, so they share it with their friends. For instance, a little story might be, if someone comes down on a kayaking adventure at Riverlife, and particularly if they get to spend a lot of time with some of the local people, then when their friends come, or their parents or their family, they will bring them down and teach them how to kayak. So they're almost doing my job for me. And the second reason why the Chinese market is important to us is because out at Tangalooma Island, when the dolphins come in, the Chinese people love to come and see the dolphins. So while they're at the island, they like to do other things as well. And I will talk about some of the challenges I had when I first came across Chinese people, because they weren't as strong swimmers as we are in Australia.
I just come up with an extra question. Has it ever concerned you that, because in the past we kind of had the stereotype that Chinese people, travelers, they can be group travelers who are only interested in gambling, shopping. How did you find out the change of consumer behaviors?
I think that Chinese people are very entrepreneurial, and I think to me it's a natural fit, and same as Koreans and many other groups. And so that's why with MyCube, when we first started, we had a fairly large campaign within the Chinese young people community. We sponsored dance parties, we sponsored student associations, and we sponsor Chinese digital community notice board because Chinese people just wanted to do business. So we offer that opportunity, so it's a natural fit for us.
And from my point of view, I think sometimes the stereotype is really just a misunderstanding. And I think when people don't dig deep enough and they only see large groups going shopping or going gambling, they form a stereotype. But when you look a little bit further about what is the real interest from Chinese people, the interest is very, very similar to any traveller. They want to have the experiences that we have locally, and they also want to buy some gifts to take home. And the thing I like about Chinese people coming to Australia is they really appreciate what we have to offer. And I think sometimes there are some travellers that don't appreciate it as much as the Chinese travellers do.
Thank you for that. Stanley, you mentioned that your business starts with only $5 for the entrepreneurs.
Yes.
How did you come up with that idea?
So I was a physiotherapist, right? And I had my clinic inside a shopping center. And throughout the years, I saw all these retailers, these shops, they fall over and then they lost hundreds and thousands of dollars. And I thought, geez, this is horrible. And then I looked into this a little bit more. And plus, at the time, I was learning about business. So when you're passionate about what you learn, you start to look into a problem. And I found that there's a big problem in Australia, and as a matter of fact, in the Western societies, that retailing is very, very expensive. And that's why the online sort of platforms sort of taken over a little bit over the last 10 years. So when I look into the numbers a little bit deeper, there is still a fairly good space, a fairly good market for a concept like MyCube. See, MyCube is not completely unique. You have department stores, you have Harvey Normans, you have JB Hi-Fives. They're all similar to what MyCube does. So what I do is I focus on the segment of the market that has never existed before, that has never been serviced before. These are what I call the micro retailers. The people only have about $1,000 to up to about $100,000. They're in my space. So if they want to start a retail store, a physical store, MyCube is the best option, the cheapest option and the lowest risk option.
Interesting. And John, for you, have you did a research like how many people enjoy Riverlife every year? And also, what has been the most effective strategy for you to increase your customer base so far?
Okay, so just a couple of answers to the first question about how many people enjoy Riverlife. Riverlife services about 100,000 people a year, and with that split, it is just 50% is for adventure and 50% is to come down and enjoy a wedding or a function down in the space. And I think it would be extremely difficult to make one of those areas work without the other. Because if you want to come down and have an afternoon kayaking on the river, we'd like to make a little bit more money and sell you a barbecue and a few beers afterwards. So what we tend to do is we tend to try and cross-promote both areas of the business. If you come down on a Friday evening or a Saturday evening and do an adventure, whether it's rock climbing followed by a few drinks, then you might see a wedding happening down there, or you might see a Christmas party happening. So what we like to do is we like to use word of mouth as one of our strategies to get people back. And people will only talk about you if they enjoy the experience. So people have a lot of choice in life, particularly with their leisure dollar and their leisure time. So if they choose to come to us, for instance, number one, we need to give them a really good experience. We need to be happy and friendly, and we then encourage them to talk to their friends about it. And there's one thing with the Chinese markets is their networks with their friends. If you get a Chinese person who's there who really enjoys the experience, they will tell their friends. Whereas I don't have direct access to those networks, so it's great to encourage people to talk about their experience.
Sounds awesome, because your customers does the job for you. So what has been the biggest achievement, do you think, since, for John's, what do you think has been the biggest achievement for you since the start of Riverlife?
Okay. I'd like to talk about two things again here. For me, the biggest achievement is the great staff that I've had come on board and help build the business, along with the business partners that I've brought on to work with me. Because your company is only as good as the people who represent you. And the products you put forward are only as good as those people who are going to put those products forward for you. So my biggest achievement has been finding the right people to work with me and developing their skills, and in most cases having them stay for a long period of time with us. Secondly, I'd like to say the diversification of our business. So because we run about 5 or 6 different types of businesses at once, there is always one business that isn't doing as well as the others, and there's always one business that is overachieving. So it's really good to not have all your eggs in one basket. I would sometimes hate to be only just sitting on that one business that isn't doing too well.
Well, that would lead me to the other questions later on. Well, to both of you, when it comes to marketing to Chinese population in Australia, what are some of the key learnings that you've got?
My key learnings is that the Chinese people move at a very fast pace. Things come and go very quickly. The trends come and go very quickly. I've seen in a short space of 7.5 years with MyCube, we have to move platforms to platforms to platforms. We have to move in trend with the current trend of where people are and how people communicate and what is popular for people. So I think that's something that we have learned, and I'm getting on with age a little bit, so I rely on some of my staff to tell me, oh, what's popular at the moment. So they give me a lot of tips in terms of who to talk to and which groups to talk to and how to connect with certain people, especially potential clients of ours.
What about you, John?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say, could Yusi stand up and say hello to the team? Yusi looks after a lot of our marketing with the Chinese, and the reason why we ask Yusi to do that is because, for instance, I find it difficult to talk to Chinese people through Facebook, for instance. And when you have different types of social media, it's very hard for someone like myself to concentrate on one and be across all the different media and the different networks. So having a great young team helping out there is really, really important. But secondly, I'd also like to say that in business, you sometimes go for the easy win to start with. And when you run an adventure business, you target to those people that are already here. It's much easier to get someone to make a purchase who's in Brisbane and can have a look at the sky and say, it's a beautiful, fine day, I'm going to choose an adventure down at Riverlife and go to it. And then that person has their friends here, they have their family come along. When I target someone who's in China, about to take a trip to Brisbane, it's very, very expensive to target that one person, sell an experience, and when they get here, they may change their mind and want to do something else. So the easy win is always to grab the Chinese population that is already in and around here, whether it's the travelers once they get here, or whether it's students and their families. It's always, for me, the easiest win.
So both of you learned along the way doing your business. So what has been the biggest misunderstanding that when you market to Chinese people, according to your experience?
I don't know about you, John, but because I can read Chinese, so I've got a head start there. Yeah. Even though, because I was born in Taiwan, so we use traditional characters, and I need to really learn about the simplified characters. For me, I wouldn't say misunderstanding. To me, it's more about catching up with what's in trend. And I think that because I have young staff, and they keep on getting younger every year, don't they, John? And so
the gap.
The gap is getting bigger. So I rely on them to tell me what's in trend at the moment, who's talking in what group. And so I don't think, to me, there's a big misunderstanding, because I understand the language, and culturally it's the same. So for me, it's a lot easier.
For me, the biggest misunderstanding was listening to the industry. And I'll give you an example. I was told when Chinese people first started coming here in big numbers, I was told that in Cairns, when they sold a tour, they would give a choice to a Chinese person. You can either do the semi-submarine experience, where they got into a vessel that was like a glass-bottom boat and it would go through the reef, or they could go snorkeling. Now, they said 99% of Chinese people do not want to get wet and do not want to go snorkeling, so they're going to go into the semi-sub. And I thought, oh shit, I don't have a semi-sub. So what am I going to do? So I said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to design and build a glass-bottom boat to use down here. And then I thought, that's pretty expensive. And I noticed we had one guy in our team who just happened to be Chinese, and he was working for us, and he loved snorkeling and he loved swimming, and he spoke great Chinese. And I said, do you think that you could convince other Chinese people to go swimming instead of getting on the boat? And he said, yeah, I think I can. So he convinced me to put on some more Chinese-speaking staff to spend a lot of time getting them comfortable in the water. And the experience that the Chinese people were having, getting in the water, going snorkeling like we were, and seeing and experiencing what we were experiencing was so much better than actually putting them into a boat where they only got to look through glass panels. And for me, one of the other misunderstandings for me was that because Chinese people couldn't swim, that they couldn't have this experience. Now they could. So my wife is not a very strong swimmer at all, and she gets very scared in the water, and she's Australian. So she just puts on a life jacket, takes a pool noodle with her, and she feels fine. So of all the Chinese people we put in the water, there's very, very few that get scared and turn back. But we just needed the Chinese staff to be able to explain to them that it was going to be safe and a fantastic experience.
Very interesting story. So consumer behavior-wise, both of you mentioned some before. What do you think the key traits that Chinese people have that are very different from the Australian local customers?
I think Chinese consumers are early adopters. I think Chinese consumers can accept new concepts. They actually crave for new things and new or the best thing there is available. And I think that Australian consumers are very conservative and skeptical, critical of new things that come along. There must be a scam somewhere. That's what the Australian people think. But I think Chinese people are wanting to have a go and wanting to try it out for themselves. And they're very, very quick. So you've got to be very ready to talk to a Chinese consumer, Chinese customer for us. So we've got to have all our information ready because they'll ask a lot of questions very quickly and they can make a decision on the spot. So that's this has been my experience.
So there's a couple of things I want to mention. I find sometimes that a Chinese consumer wants to be made feel special. They'd like to get a special deal for themselves, which I don't I don't find that much with Australians. Australians will come and they'll go, well, that's the price. They either like it or they don't like it and they walk away. A Chinese person will say, that's the regular price, but that's not my price. So we do deals. We know how to do deals. But the other thing I've noticed with the Chinese consumers is if one Chinese person is doing something and enjoying themselves, it creates a lot of interest for other Chinese people. And they think, well, if they can do it, then I can do it. And I like that because it means if you offer a deal early in the morning and you get a group of Chinese people doing something, then other people are going to see them doing it and they're going to come and visit you and want to try it as well.
I'll open up some questions from the floor. Do we have any questions? Yes?
Do you find the culture between the Aussie Chinese, who was here for a couple of times, versus the Chinese coming from the mainland vastly different, or do they have differences? In terms of your exposure with the Chinese migrants here and the Chinese in mainland China, is there differences in the way their consumer appetite and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Australia is a very multicultural country. We're constantly interacting with other ethnic groups with different cultures. And I think the longer you are here, the more you are sort of integrated into the whatever we call this Australian culture is. Compared to somebody that just landed here, of course there's going to be differences. I've been here for 28 years. Sometimes I find it quite difficult to get my point across, even though I can speak the language. So I have to really think what's the perspective and what the context is. So I have to think in that sort of way to make sure that I don't miscommunicate. So yes, there's definitely differences, and I think that especially in the first two generations of any ethnic groups that immigrate here to this country, there's always going to be a bit of a gap between this group of people and what we call the mainstream Australian culture, whatever that means.
I find that Chinese people who've been here for some time, particularly if they've studied here, are a lot more confident, very, very confident to come up and talk and tell you exactly what it is that they're after. There is one way in particular over on Tangalooma we can tell if someone's on their first visit. They run down to the ocean and they start kicking the ocean and getting their feet wet because there are so many Chinese people who come and visit us who have just never had the experience of walking down into the sand and getting into the ocean. And for me, that makes me feel really proud that we've been able to offer these experiences that people have never had before.
Any more questions?
So do you actually advertise in China using any of their social media, or are you only using social media locally here in Australia to Chinese, local Chinese?
And no, we, depending on which business I'm talking about, some of the businesses I have, we don't have a lot of Chinese visitation. Things like P&O Edge with the cruise ships, there's not a great deal of Chinese visitation. There is some. Tangalooma is a very, very high level of Chinese visitation and very, very sophisticated marketing channels as well. Through social media platforms, a huge spend, probably 30% of the marketing spend is spent in China and on Chinese, and that comes through with the numbers in the visitation as well, and also combined with the airlines as well, the Chinese airlines and Tourism Queensland, Tourism Australia. For us, for our little business at Riverlife, no, we don't do a lot direct other than what the team does themselves here. Yeah.
One more question? Yeah.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I've got two questions. The first question is for both of you. We'd like to know from the start of you, when you started your business, how many Chinese customers, like as a percentage-wise, for business for you, and till now, has that increased or has that decreased? And my second question is more for John. You said you had multiple businesses, and obviously some are go better than others, some go worse. Do you find that is usually always the case, but you keep that business that might not be going so well still going because you can cross into another business, or do you find, okay, well, this is not going so well, so focus on this one and bring that revenue back to this business?
Okay. I'll start with the last question, then you'll have to remind me of the first question again. Yeah. So when you have multiple businesses, something could go drastically wrong in one of them. So when I talk about my businesses in tourism, I've been in business for 30 years now, and my tourism side of businesses is round about 17, 18 years. So I'm always learning and sometimes trying new things, and those new things don't always work. To give you an indication, one of the challenges we have at the moment is on advertising, and Google AdWords is becoming more and more expensive. Search engine optimization is more and more difficult. Everybody's trying to get into that space. And the social media reach we have isn't as good as it used to be. So what happens when you come across problems like these, you don't expect those problems straight away. They creep up on you gradually, and you see the performance of your business going down, and you think, geez, why aren't as many people coming here anymore? And it takes you a little while to work it out. And that may be happening in one business, but in another business, things are roaring ahead. And you have to work out as well, why are things going so well in this business? For me, when I choose a business, it's a business that I want to stick with for many, many, many years. So I don't build businesses that are going to last 1 or 2 years. If that happens, dump it quickly and walk away from it. But the businesses that I build, I want to last 10, 15, 20 years, and I know that there is no end of the game. You never become a winner in business, because if you think you're a winner, then next year something's going to come up and take you by surprise. So you've got to be in for the long haul. And when you're in for the long haul, you do follow those ups and downs in business, and you need to make sure as soon as your business starts going down, you identify why it's going down, you take responsibility for it, and you do something about it really, really quickly. Don't just put your head in the sand and say, oh, I'll worry about that next month, or I'll worry about that next month. Take action straight away. So one of the reasons why I'm able to do that across multiple businesses is because I have good, strong business partners and good, strong management teams working with me. So while I move away from one business to focus on a problem in a business, I know the other ones are going to be all right. So as business owners, the one thing we really need to do is focus on the problems, find the solutions so that the rest of our team can continue with the business.
Okay, well, just answering your question with regards to the mix of my customers. As I said previously, when Roman asked me the question about my initial marketing with Chinese community, so when I first started the first store of MyCube, I would say about 90% of all of our clients are Chinese entrepreneurs. But then over the years that has dropped. Obviously, we are catering for everybody, wherever you're from, locally in the area. I think you were asking about the media advertisement. I've done a lot of Chinese newspapers in the beginning, and that worked very, very well about 7.5 years ago. And I don't think they work as well now for me because I've done other sort of retest back into that. Now with my customers, they basically is more locally based of where my stores are. But I forecast that we'll have another spike in the Chinese clients, entrepreneurs in my group, because we are about to open up a store in Parramatta in Sydney, and there's a fairly large Chinese population there. So to me, my business is very different to John's. I focus on business owners, so I'm more like B2B. So my strategies is not, we target very specifically of where these business owners hang out, and we're in Chamber of Commerce's. I was a Chamber of Commerce president as well, and I talk to all these business owners in their sort of day-to-day sort of activities. So that's how I get my clientele nowadays.
Okay, now I'll move on. My next question is for Stanley. So, what do you think that entrepreneurs should be mindful of if they aim to create a similar business like yours, like retail franchise?
Okay, let's just talk about retail. Because at the moment, retail on the news every day is getting negative by the moment. Last week we saw Esprit pull out of Australia. I think they closed about 30 odd stores, something like that. 350 staff will be gone. And then we saw, I think Silver Butterfly and Baby Bounce exited about a month ago. And then last year was horrific for retail. Look, can I just say that in the times of this is where opportunities lie around. And this is where you see companies sort of come out of nowhere to take up the space that others have left behind. I get asked a lot about my view about current retail space. And my view is this: over the last 7 years, there has not been any R&D gone into retail. Over the last 7 years, there has been a lot of mergers and acquisitions. There has been a lot of supply chain optimization. There has been a lot of cost cutting in retail. There hasn't been anything that has been put into retail to bring out more better products, more innovative products, unique products, and provide customers with better shopping experience. There has been none of that. And no wonder why the shoppers have not been shopping over the last few years. People say, oh, it's because of online. Well, if you look at online figures, they haven't increased that markedly as well. So I wouldn't say that it's all online. And nowadays, in 2018, there is a consensus that if you want to do business in retail, you've got to have both online and offline in combination. So what I have seen over the last 6 months, quite excitingly, is that there has been a lot of new products coming out of corners of this planet. you have groups of little design houses from Shenzhen, China. You have little groups in Europe, little groups in the United States. They design 1 or 2 new products. That's very exciting. But then they don't really have the capital to mass produce or get into major retailers yet. And I hope to pick them up with the MyCube platform. So I think that there will be another phase of exciting retail experience coming around the corner. I don't know what it's going to look like in 10 years' time, but I can see that a new phase is starting. So that's very exciting for me.
Is there a question for John? What suggestion would you give to those people who want to create a similar business as yours?
Well, again, listening to Stanley's answer, it's really encouraging to see someone who can identify opportunities where everyone else is whinging about retail. You're creating an opportunity. And I would also has a guess that, that you have used creativity to provide something that is appealing. Now, for me, when it comes down to product, no matter what your product is, it must be appealing. So you've got to build something that is very appealing and very special. Because if you build something special, then people will come to you. If you try and just do what everyone else is doing, you're going to fall into exactly the situation that Stanley was talking about, where everybody stops coming. And one of the biggest challenges we have at the moment is everybody's trying to do everything in the same ways. Once you become really, really creative and you do things differently, and you find that appeal with the audience that you're targeting, that I think is one of the greatest pieces of advice I can give a young business person, is to be very creative and create something new and special.
Yeah, exactly. So also, my next question is for both of you. So what is your biggest challenge, you think, that you have with your business at the moment?
My challenge at the moment is that we're going through a lot of growth at the moment. I'm inviting a lot of our partners and investors into MyCube to expand interstate. And my challenge is reading people and to understand what their needs are, and then getting the right people into our culture. We have a specific culture with MyCube team already, so inviting people from different walks of life, bringing whatever their value they can add into our company, and I need to make sure that they're the right type of person and with the right integrity to come into my business. So I think that would be my challenge, is to mash up all these jigsaw puzzles or personalities, and it's a lot of fun. I quite like it. I think as a physiotherapist, I'm a bit of a psychologist as well, so I love reading people, so it has been quite a lot of fun, yeah.
My biggest challenge, I think, is watching the world change at the moment. I like to try and predict the future, particularly 12 months and 18 months ahead, so that we can try making some inroads in what consumers are doing. But it's very hard at the moment. It's extremely hard because the game keeps changing all the time. If I lived in China, sometimes it might be a little bit easier, because I know that if I hit a social media platform with a product and it gained traction, that people would instantly talk about it and it could be delivered the next day, and you have some really great infrastructure over in China to get things moving. The challenge here is, and I spoke about it earlier, knowing where to put your money, where to put your marketing dollar. How are you going to build something now that is still going to be relevant in 18 months' time? And in my industry, the travel industry, it's a very, very difficult industry because it's based on commissions, and very, very large commissions. So when you're getting squeezed with commission-based selling, and you're also then competing against people who are selling your product with what you may have thought were some direct sales through through Google and social media, and then you're finding the people that control those platforms are changing the rules all the time, then you need to start thinking on your feet. You need to start going back to basics, and you need to start thinking, well, how are those basics going to work for me? And when I talk about basics, again, it's good customer service. If you continue to give good customer service and you work out the solution to getting the word out about your good service and your good products, then you'll win. But when you start to have a win and then things start to change a little bit, you have to be on top of that. And right now, it is a huge challenge for small businesses. I've never seen a time that is more dangerous than those businesses that have got into business in the last 2 or 3 years and have relied heavily on social media and the reach, because it's just disappearing. So it's a very, very tough time for a lot of businesses. And you may have already noticed that some great restaurants that were there a couple of years ago just simply aren't there. Now, their food didn't get any worse. It's still been good. It's just there's a lot of noise going on and it's hard to get that cut through.
All right. My next question, I think that gentleman has mentioned a bit before, like now we all know both of you are serial entrepreneurs who run multiple businesses. So how do you manage to get the right amount of attention to each of your businesses to keep the balance?
I hate the word balance to start with. Many years ago when I started working, people keep on talking about work-life balance. I hate it because balance seems like if you do more work, your life seems to suffer, or if you do more life, your work seems to suffer. I'm a greedy person. I like to have everything. So my choice of word is equilibrium. How do you function in a way in your tip-top form? How do you get the most out of your day? And this is something that I say to my young staff all the time. You sleep about 8 hours, okay? You go to work about 8 hours, that's 16. And then the rest of the 8 hours is whatever you have left. And you need to structure it. I mean, we'll have the same amount of minutes of the day. So why does one person is able to do a lot more than the others? It's simply because they know how to prioritize. They know how to be more productive. They know how to make a decision that worth a lot more than those people who make 10 decisions, 10 right decisions. And of course, they are better than those people who make 10 wrong decisions. So I'm forever looking to try to improve myself in terms of productivity, and that's what I do with my team to try to get them more productive. Actually, what was the question?
You said you hate balance.
Oh, right, I hate balance. So I guess at the end of, the balance between businesses, I think at the end of the day, it is really about planning. It is really about how do I plan my physiotherapy business? How do I plan my MyCube business? And I also heavily involved with community work, and how do I involve with that, and also my family life as well. How do I plan for all of those things? And I think that if you are very diligent with the way that you put your minutes into your diary, I think you're off to a great start.
John, would you like to share some?
Yes, it's amazing how entrepreneurs do think the same way. For me as well, it's I like to think you only have one life. I like to act as if I have 2 lives. And the way I do that is I identify what it is that I enjoy in life. And so I think to myself, what do I enjoy doing? And I've done this for many years, probably 30 years. In fact, I've been married now 25 years this year. And my bookkeeper, I've known longer than I've known my wife, and she's still with me. I identified in the very, very, very early stages of my business life that I really didn't like bookkeeping. So I found a really good bookkeeper who was much better than I was, and I made sure I paid her well, and I kept her with me to learn about my businesses and develop as my businesses developed. So using that as an example, whenever I make a decision to employ somebody, I make sure that person is far better than I am at doing things that I don't enjoy doing. So what that means is I have people in all of my businesses who are very good at doing those things that I'm not very good at, and those things that I don't enjoy doing, which means I can go on with those things I do enjoy doing. And those things I do enjoy doing, like most men, is getting distracted and moving on to the next bright, shiny thing. So when I have my businesses running well with good, competent business partners and staff, then I don't have to worry about it unless something goes wrong. If something goes wrong, I move back into that business and I work on it. If nothing's going wrong and the businesses are going well, I'm looking for that next shiny thing. And for me, at the moment, that next shiny thing is the opportunities that have arisen in the tech startup space. Because for me, it's almost like when you build something that keeps giving back to you, like if you build a great website, while you're sleeping at night, people are still using that website and still making purchases. It's the same with tech. When you build something and you continue to build with it, and you have great ideas and you have great technology, then it will just continue to give back to you. And for me, that's what I'm chasing now.
Now I smell a bit of competition. Okay, do we have any more questions from the floor? Before I move on.
What happens to the AI industry?
So what was that?
Let's say we move 10 years from now, right? Employees, workers, majority of them will be replaced by the AI system. And it's going to impact Australia a lot. You can see it happening in Japan and Europe. So what do you see the beneficial with marketing and with social media, especially with AI?
I'll go first. My philosophy in doing business is all about relationships, and AI can't replace that. I think it's about interpersonal relationships, it's about that human touch. Like I'm right now in this room with you guys, giving you everything I have, and I think that no technology can replace that. Technologies can help us to get better relationships, to improve certain communication or work processes. We have a lot of automation in MyCube. To give you an example, when we had one store, we had 2 full-time staff doing all the transactions and the lease management in the background. Now we have 3 stores, we have 1 staff. And then we don't forecast any increase in human resource by the time we get to 6. So that's AI for us. So what do our staff do? Our staff go out there and connect with our clients and interact with our clients in the most basic and naked and 100% way. So I would say that the workforce in the future it's all about sales. And I think that sales is something that we haven't really, I personally, from my experience, we haven't really paid too much attention. And I think that sales is the way of future. Certainly, with the young people I talk to, I try to coach them to be better relationship managers because that's how deals are done. That's how marketing and business is done. So that's my view about AI.
Well, I think it's a fantastic question. Artificial intelligence and machine learning is something that we all need to be aware of now, particularly as business owners. Would anyone in this room be worried? Is anyone worried about job security into the future? No? So, look, for me, I see the future as being an exciting place. It's something that we can't stop. It's going to continue to happen. Artificial intelligence, I think, if it's used in the right way, is going to give us better knowledge. It's going to show us how people do things, why they do things. It's going to give us so much information, and then we can't process that information ourselves. So we need machine learning to process that information. But it might give us some really good clues as to how we can improve people's lives. So I know you don't like the word balance, but I love the fact that you've talked about human interactions, and now we're talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning. Two very, very vastly different things, but I think if they work together, we can create some really unique products that people haven't even thought about yet. And I think if we use them in the right way, we might be able to affect those people in the world who don't have it as good as we do. Like, you think about China, for instance, okay? We hear now that China is developing at a rapid rate solar power. You know, that's going to help the world enormously. And why is China developing solar power? Because China wants to consume products that take electricity. Now, I think people in China are smart enough to realize that we don't have enough fossil fuels in the world, and by burning too many fossil fuels, we're going to create, you know, a bad environment. So I think with artificial intelligence and machine learning, this is just going to help technology, and it's really going to help the world, because we're going to create those solutions that we just simply can't do on our own.
Very insightful, thank you. Any more questions? Yeah.
Yes, I have a question for both John and Stanley. I understand that you mentioned that the Chinese consumers are generally very, they are very adventurous, because they tend to be more adventurous in the sense that the trends, they tend to follow trends as compared to the locals. So I was just wondering, because John in specific, you did mention that you tend to look at projects and new projects. You tend to try to innovate in that sense. So I'm just wondering, how do you first find out the upcoming trends that attracts the market, the Chinese consumers? Number two, how do you actually validate whether the project or whatever trend is what they actually are attracted?
Okay, what I try to do is I try to cheat, okay? Because there is so much information out there that we need to make decisions that you need to cheat. You can't take in all that information, so what you do is you do quick searches for it. And I don't like to read a lot, and I find that sometimes when I'm exercising, I like to jump onto YouTube and I like to see what's going on in the world, and I like to search for those new trends. And I like to hear people talking about those new trends. We were watching some episodes today about new trends happening in the digital world. And by just getting these little snippets and these little glimpses of what's possible, and then finding what consumers are actually doing, you start to create in your mind a path that you can see people taking. Now you have to do the hard part, and that is take a risk. Because if you want to follow something, and I'm sure when Stanley started business, he started it with an idea, and he started it because he saw an opportunity. But there was no one there saying, this is definitely going to work. If you do this, it's definitely going to work. Most times people say, are you crazy? Because most people can't see as far in front as you can, and they don't even want to talk about it, or they're scared of it. So you have to take that leap of faith and take that risk. It's not always going to work out, but if you can identify those trends, you can identify the way consumers are behaving, moving towards those trends, you have a great business idea, a great team behind it, you think the timing is right to execute, take the risk, do it, and you might be surprised with the result.
Can I just add on to what John said? I think Pablo Picasso said, great artists steal from others. So, and then also Steve Jobs is a hero of mine, and he said, on top of that quote, he said, we steal all the time. We steal all the time. And And then he also said, Steve Jobs also said that when you ask a genius, how can they, what gave them the inspiration to come up with this new best idea? Often the genius just looked at you and said, I don't know, it's just always been like that. And this is what Steve Jobs said, is that, see, these guys, they have the experience of doing all these stuff along the way, and then naturally they will see what's right ahead of them. And so that's pretty much what he just said. So I just thought I'd add the Steve Jobs quote.
Right, now I'll get to my last question. I believe you've got asked for this question many times, but we are all curious. The question is, where do you see your company going in 5 years? Typical question.
Very typical. Well, we hope to build 35 stores by the end of 3.5 years, and we hope to take our stores to North America and Europe, because we find that these societies have the similar retail problems by the time we get to 5 years. And I had investment bankers come to me and said, oh, you can build 2,000 stores. I'm not that crazy, and we'll see what happens. But I do hope that I can get into international market in the space of retail platforms.
Me. That's a hard one. I think I've got to the stage. At this stage, I have about 160 employees across all my businesses. Now I think I'm at the stage where I want to do something that helps the world a lot more, and particularly the world of tourism and travel. I want to change the world of tourism and travel for experiences. What I'd like to do is I'd like to set up a system using technology where the customer is more engaged with the operator. So build a platform that doesn't include these huge big booking systems that take great margins and don't add a lot of value. So I'd like to be able to give great value to the customer, a lot more information, make the process very easy. And for the operator, I'd like to be able to encourage more young operators around the world to come on board, and particularly in those areas where that will change their lives and perhaps pull them out of poverty and put better tourism businesses into the market. So in 5 years, I hope to be supporting at least 50,000 businesses around the globe, at least 50,000.
Huge responsibility. We very much look forward to that. Okay, that's the end of my interview. Thank you very much, Stanley and John.
Thank you, Roman. It was a pleasure.